Winter of 1887, the blizzard swept across the Wyoming Territory with a fury that seemed almost alive, its howling winds echoing like a banshee's cry through the empty streets of Cheyenne. Snow fell in relentless sheets, burying tracks, silencing voices, and threatening the lives of anyone foolish enough to remain exposed to its wrath. At the far end of the lonely train station, a young woman sat huddled upon a wooden bench, her body trembling beneath a thin shawl that offered little defense against the bitter cold. Her breath formed faint clouds in the air, each one weaker than the last. Her name was Elizabeth Libby Montgomery. Clutched tightly in her frozen hands was a small leather bag containing all that remained of her life, $3, a faded photograph, and a handful of medical instruments that spoke of a past now lost to her. Once, she had been a nurse in Philadelphia. Skilled, respected, trusted with both life and death. Until the scandal. A man standing a doctor had attempted to force himself upon her. Libby had fought back with all the strength she possessed, striking him and breaking his nose. But in a world where a woman's word carried little weight against a man's reputation, truth was quickly buried. She was dismissed. Her name blackened. Doors closed to her one by one until there was nowhere left to turn. And so she had come west, chasing the promise of opportunity whispered across the frontier. But the promise had run out in Cheyenne. And now, as the storm raged outside, she faced a far colder truth. She might not survive the night. The distant rhythm of horse hooves broke through the storm. Slow. Steady. Unmistakable. Libby forced her head upward, her vision blurred by exhaustion, as a figure emerged through the swirling snow, a man astride a powerful black stallion. He dismounted with ease, securing the animal before stepping toward the station. When he pushed open the door, the wind rushed in behind him, carrying snow and cold into the already frigid room. "Evening, miss," he said, his voice deep and calm, touched by the drawl of the southern plains. Then he saw her clearly. And everything about his expression changed. He removed his gloves slowly, studying her pale face, her trembling form, the medical bag at her side. "My name's Jack Thornton," he said after a moment. "I own the Double T Ranch, north of here." Libby tried to answer, but her teeth chattered too violently. Only a faint nod escaped her. Jack's gaze sharpened with concern. "You're going to freeze to death if you stay here," he said plainly. There was no hesitation in his voice. Only certainty and something else, something rare. Kindness. Moments later, his heavy coat rested upon her shoulders, its warmth startling enough to draw a faint gasp from her lips. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried. Her legs failed her. Without another word, Jack bent and lifted her into his arms, gathering her as though she weighed nothing at all, her bag held securely against her side. "The hotel's just across the street," he said. "We'll get you warm." Outside, the storm raged on, but within his arms, Libby felt something she had not known in months. Safety. The Cattleman's Hotel stood as a refuge against the storm, its warmth spilling into the lobby as Jack entered, carrying the half-frozen woman through the door. Conversations fell silent. Heads turned. But Jack paid them no mind. "I need a room," he said firmly to the clerk. "And hot food. Coffee. Blankets. Immediately." Within minutes, Libby was seated near a roaring fire, wrapped in warmth as life slowly returned to her body. Pain followed as feeling crept back into her fingers, but she welcomed it. It meant she was alive. Jack remained nearby, quiet but attentive, ensuring she drank slowly, warmed gradually. "You've had some medical training," she observed faintly. He smiled. "Enough to know not to lose someone to the cold." As the fire crackled, Libby told her story. Not all of it. But enough. Enough for Jack to understand. And when she spoke of the man who had tried to take from her what was not his to claim, Jack's jaw tightened with quiet anger. "Out here," he said at last, "we judge a person by what they do. Not what others say about them." The words settled over her like warmth deeper than the fire itself. The following morning dawned bright and still, the storm having passed, leaving the world buried beneath untouched snow. Jack returned with breakfast and an offer. A position at his ranch. Good pay. A place to live. Purpose. Respect. Libby listened carefully, searching his face for any trace of deceit. She found none. Only honesty. Only sincerity. And perhaps something more. The journey to the Double T Ranch carried them across vast, snow-covered plains, the horizon stretching endlessly beneath a wide, open sky. When they crested the final ridge, Libby caught her breath. Below them lay not merely a ranch, but a small world unto itself, buildings clustered together, smoke rising from chimneys, men at work despite the cold. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jack only smiled. "Wait until spring." Life at the ranch began at once. Libby stepped into her role without hesitation, tending to injuries, offering care where none had existed before. The men, rough and hardened by frontier life, quickly came to respect her. Then to trust her. And eventually to depend on her. But it was not long before her true test came. A young cowboy, trampled by a frightened horse, was brought in unconscious, his life hanging by a thread. There was no doctor. No time. Only Libby. She worked for hours, steady and unyielding, her training guiding her hands as she fought to pull the boy back from death. When at last she stepped away, exhausted, his breathing had steadied. He would live. From that moment forward, no one questioned her again. That evening, beneath a sky filled with stars, Jack stood beside her on the porch, his voice quieter than she had ever heard it. "What you did today," he began. "I've never seen anything like it." Libby said nothing. She did not need to. He looked at her then, not as an employer, not as a rescuer, but as a man who had found something he had not known he was searching for. "I love you," he said simply. Libby's heart, once guarded so fiercely, no longer resisted. "I love you too." What followed was not sudden, nor careless, but steady, built on trust, respect, and shared strength. They married that summer, beneath the open Wyoming sky. Not as a wealthy rancher and a fallen woman. But as equals. Partners. Two souls who had found one another when both had been lost. Together, they built more than a life. They built a legacy. A ranch that prospered. A community that grew. A future shaped by compassion and courage. And when the past returned, when the man who had once tried to destroy Libby came seeking to do so again, he found a very different world waiting for him. Here, truth was not so easily silenced. Here, she was not alone. Years passed. Children were born. A hospital was built. A town rose from the land itself. And the story of Jack and Libby Thornton spread across the frontier, told in quiet voices beside campfires and in crowded rooms filled with wonder. All because, on one bitter winter night, a man chose to stop. And a woman chose to trust. Their love did not begin with promises. It began with kindness. And in the untamed American West, that proved to be the strongest foundation of all.